And good morning to the Bravo Time of Sports right here on the Community Radio Network. Make sure to follow us on all our social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, as well as go to our website at crnsports.org. Again, that's crnsports.org. We have a special guest on the phone line this morning, and that is Mr. Dan of a former AP sports writer and the author of 36 baseball books, including the one we're going to get into today, which is called When the Braves Rule the Diamond, 14 Flags Over Atlanta. You actually have a signing coming up here on the 20th down in Cooperstown. And this book is kind of all about from the decade from 1991 to 2005, where the Atlanta Braves won 14 consecutive division titles, and a book forward by Bobby Cox. So kind of talk to us about first the relationship that you had and some of the conversations you had with Bobby Cox.
Bobby and I have been friends for many, many years. In fact, it goes back to his first term as manager of the Braves when he was the youngest manager in the major leagues. So that goes back a long way. And back then, the team was really the bad news Braves. They were not very good. And Bobby was kind of learning on the job. But boy, did he come a long way. He came back as general manager. He made a lot of trades that helped him later on when he became manager again, and rebuilt with pitching, speed, and defense. And that's why the Braves won 14 times in a row.
Well, it's one of those, that's where obviously I'm only 31 years old, so my, vision of the Braves growing up was the dominant pitching, obviously from the John Smoltz, from the Greg Maddux, from the Tom Glavine. And it was so hard to see the players starting to kind of split up. We saw John Smoltz stick it out with us, but when Tom Glavine went over to the Mets, when we saw Greg Maddux leave as well, it's one of those situations where you just want this team to stay together for forever, and that's it's a little cliche. But again, talk to us about this book. How first you've written 36 baseball books. How do you have the time for one? And, talk to us about how this book kind of came about for you, and what was the main purpose behind you writing When the Braves Ruled the Diamond?
Well, first of all, I'm a full-time freelance writer, and the only sport I cover is baseball. I don't know anything about football, basketball, hockey, but I know a lot about baseball, which is why I've been averaging about a book a year since 1974. And the book came about because Skyhorse Publishing, the editors there, Julie Gans, G-A-N-Z, said to me, "We'd love you to do a book for us. What would you like to do?" And at that point, I had written almost 36 books. And I said, there's never been a book about the Braves' 14-year title streak. And that's a pretty impressive record that's being overlooked. She said, "You're right. There's a book. Go write it." That's how it came about. No contract, just a handshake.
No, that's fantastic. No, I think that's great when, that's just like a songwriter or a musician where they, they're either at their desk or they're at work or at a coffee shop, no matter what, and something just kind of clicks. We do what we call an artist spotlight segment on the radio station here in town, and it's one of those things where, one, I don't know how they get up so early to sing for us, and that's my first question every single morning. These musicians, they're on the road constantly, and it's one of those things where they sit behind, just, again, in a coffee shop, and something just clicks, and all of a sudden they have a brand new song that day. And it's one of those, this is just kind of, that reminds me, that story you just told me, reminds me of that atmosphere. You know what? This is going to be something special.
Well, it's really funny that you told that story, because my best writing I do early in the morning. I wake up, I have an idea, I sit down and I write. The phone's not ringing, nobody's bothering me, and I just knock out a story. And it's like doing a book. I mean, an article is equivalent to a chapter in a book.
Oh, absolutely. So kind of talk to us about a few of the conversations with these players that you had over the years. Obviously, they're the big names. We have the Greg Maddux and Tom Glavine and John Smoltz, the Andres Galarraga, the Andrew Jones, the Chipper Jones. But talk to us about some of the conversations, if you can, that you had while you're writing this book to get this prepared.
Well, the very best interview of everybody I talked to was by far Leo Mazzoni, the pitching coach, who, by the way, belongs in the Hall of Fame.
Absolutely.
That is such a travesty that he's not there. There were only 3 people that wore the Braves uniform throughout the 14-year title streak. And you mentioned John Smoltz already. He was the only player. And also Bobby Cox and Leo Mazzoni. Yeah. Leo was a pitching coach for the whole 14-year run. He gave me such good interviews. And the only interviews that were littered with X-rated words, and you know what? It was so funny the way he said it. I used it in the book. So the whole book is pretty G-rated except for the Leo Mazzoni chapter.
No, I love it, and I can just picture him. I know you can't see me on the radio, but I'm pictured with my hands together and I'm rocking back and forth. That's what I remember.
By the way, Bobby told me he hated that. I said to Bobby, what was it like sitting next to Leo when he was rocking? Bobby said, I couldn't stand it. So I said, well, why didn't you tell him to stop? Bobby said, I didn't want to ruin a good thing. His pictures were doing so well, I didn't want to do anything that might jinx it.
No, I love that story. You have a upcoming signing down in Cooperstown here the 20th. Kind of talk to us about how this is going to come about, where you're going to be, and where can our listeners find more information about that?
I'm going to be on Main Street in Cooperstown, which is pedestrian only during the upcoming induction weekend. I'm going to be signing from 11 to 1, and I'll be signing with a fellow author named Jay Jaffe, who's a pretty good author in his own right in front of Willis Money Rare Books, which is right near the theater marquee on Main Street. You can't miss it. What they do on induction weekend, Trey, is they set up tables on both sides of the street. A lot of former players, including Hall of Famers, sit and sign autographs, and a lot of authors sign, and a lot of people selling things sign. And that's probably where you'll find Pete Rose as well. But last year I saw a number of former Braves players. I saw Darrell Evans. I saw Sid Bream. So it's a great place to see former players and get autographs pretty easily.
Oh, fantastic. Now, can we get a little sneak peek of anything new that's coming out from Mr. Dan? Are you allowed to say it yet?
Yeah, actually, next spring. The latest revision of the new baseball catalog, or I should say, the new baseball Bible, which began life way back in 1980 as the baseball catalog, now called the new baseball Bible. It's got Mike Trout on the cover in the middle of the collage, and that book is going to be coming out next spring. It's everything you wanted to know about baseball, but were afraid to ask. And it's got a preface by Al Clark, the former umpire, and a foreword by John Thorne, the official historian of Major League Baseball.
Fantastic. Again, Mr. Dan joins us, the former AP writer and author of 36 different baseball books. Again, this is all you do. I absolutely love it. Last question for you about this book, When the Braves Rule the Diamond, the 14 Flags over Atlanta. If you had to mention one sentence, and I know this is a great book already, but if you had to mention one sentence for our listeners and our fans to remember and take away from this book, what would that be?
That would be John Schuerholz's quote. John Schuerholz, of course, the Hall of Fame general manager, who said that there's no achievement in baseball, no team achievement like 14 consecutive titles. It is the baseball equivalent, the team equivalent of Cal Ripken's individual record for longevity.
Dan, thank you so much for joining regarding this, your upcoming signee, and this great book, When the Braves Rule the Diamond, 14 Flags over Atlanta. Where can our listeners find this book, or either online, social media, or website?
Amazon.com is good, or any major bookseller, or you can go to my own website, and I want to direct your listeners to do that.
Absolutely.
It's www.danschlossberg.net, and it's SCHLOSSBERG, danschlossberg.net.
Now, let's kind of turn our attentions over to the current Atlanta Braves. Make sure, once again, to go to our website at crnsports.org. You can find all of our past shows there as well. Mr. Dan, the former AP sports writer and author of 36 books, continues to stay on the line with us, and we have been joined by Jordan Crane, who is the beat writer for Bravo Times Sports. Now, I asked you both, you guys, to come on because I do want to highlight especially this season, which has been a tremendous season already. Obviously, we're starting to write the record books. We just won our 29th on the road for the Atlanta Braves this year, and we're on pace to pass the 50-game mark for wins on the road. So, Dan, kind of talk to us about how you feel this season is to this point, especially now that we're halfway home.
This season has been a great surprise, especially because last year at the winter meetings, which I covered in San Diego, Alex Antopoulos told us that his top priority was to improve the pitching staff. He didn't do anything during the winter, made no moves, not to get a starter or a reliever. And I was thinking that before the season started, the Braves are going to finish in fourth place because the Mets, Nationals, and Phillies all made big moves. But who knew how good these young Braves were going to be, how great Mike Soroka was going to be. Mike Soroka is now the leading candidate for the Cy Young Award. And only one rookie has ever won a Cy Young, Fernando Valenzuela being the guy. So it's going to be a great finish for the Braves, I think. The young pitching has really come through. their biggest problem going down the stretch is the bullpen. But I really hope that they're going to make a trade and get somebody like Will Smith from the Giants or somebody of that ilk, maybe Kirby Yates from the Padres. And if they get somebody like that, a real proven closer, they're going to be unbeatable.
I actually agree for the most part, as far as the bullpen being the more or less the Achilles heel of this team. How the bullpen goes is how this team is going to go. I think we've seen for the past almost actually a little over 2 months now, since May 10th, that this offense can hang with just about anybody. This offense can score enough runs. It's whether or not the bullpen can keep a lead for us. I think that Max Fried he's slowly bringing himself back around to where he was at the beginning of the year. He's making adjustments. Dallas Keuchel's been a very nice sign. I also think that, like Dan said, that Mike is obviously very much in the running for Cy Young. Obviously, he's in the running for Rookie of the Year, but he's also in the running for Cy Young as well. And I would go out on a limb and say that there's a very good chance, as long as he continues to move up the way he is as far as his development, we could see him starting an All-Star game as early as next year, and maybe even the year after. Could see him easily starting All-Star game then, maybe even as early as next year. But I definitely agree with Dan. I think the bullpen is going to be the form, the part of this team that determines where we go. It determines our trajectory. I think that Will Smith would be a nice addition. I also love the idea of Kirby Yates. Watching him this past weekend, I love him. I already did love him even more. I also wouldn't mind, we've talked about this before, Trey, Raciel Iglesias on Cincinnati. He's not having the best year, but because of that, I think we get him on the cheap. But he's had very good years in the past. So I think that would be a good option. Ken Giles will be a good option. I know he's hurt right now. He's a little bit of a mental head case, just like Fulte is. But, there's multiple options out there. But the thing I'm hearing, and Dan, you're in this every day. You might can expand upon this, but the thing I'm hearing most is that bullpen help is going to be expensive come the trade deadline because everybody wants it.
That's right. Another guy to think about, because I'm here in the New York market, they're talking about trading away Dylan Betances from the Yankees. He's going to be a free agent, and the Yankees bullpen is pretty deep. If they can get Betances, maybe for a couple of young starting pitchers, that would be a great move.
Now I haven't heard that name. And Betances,
no, I haven't heard that either.
No, that's interesting. And is he hurt right now, or is he still playing?
Oh, he's hurt. He's on the DL. IL. I guess all the disabled people complained.
That's true. No, I think that name would be perfect for especially you can get him on really the cheap because he's hurt, having a hard time staying healthy. So we can possibly get that and help them out, especially with a few guys that are already ready for the major league, just haven't stepped up and made that jump. I absolutely love what you got. I love when a closer comes into the game and is so upset that he gave up a run, he is a true closer, and he'd be great for a bullpen. And Kirby Yates, in my opinion, would be absolutely perfect for the Atlanta Braves.
I agree. Another guy that you should think about, and I haven't heard this from anybody, and I'm surprised. I would like to see them make Mike Foltynewicz a closer, because there was talk when he first joined the Braves, there was talk that he was going to be a future closer, and they made him a starter instead, but I bet he'd be much better as a closer, because he only has to throw one inning, maybe two at the most. And if he throws so hard, he'd be fantastic in the bullpen.
Me and Jordan had this conversation as well. Last year, even though he was having a terrific season as a starter in our rotation, I still thought he was great for the bullpen because his memo is, and it happens every single time, and hopefully what we saw with Sean Newcomb going down back to the minors to kind of figure stuff out. Now he's been fantastic in our bullpen setting. His memo is being great for the first or second inning, and then all of a sudden he just explodes. Something doesn't go his way, and I agree with that. I think if you can just kind of pinpoint him for one inning or just one or two outs, I think that's a great move.
Yeah, I definitely do. And Luke Jackson makes me nervous every time he comes in.